All right, guys, Chris Shabib here. Today we're going to talk about leverage in real estate investing. We'll talk about two things. We'll talk about leverage, how it works, how it can increase your ROI, and how it can make your capital go further. And then we'll also talk about the banks and what we can learn from them and how to think about them as a partner in investing. All right, so let's jump in with a simple example. If I'm a real estate investor, I have $100,000, right? I walk into the bank and I say, I want to buy property with my $100,000. They'll say, I'll give you $400,000 on that, right? $400,000 is what the bank will give me. This gives me a $500,000 buying power with my $100,000. This is a fundamental piece of the puzzle as it relates to leverage and the power of leverage. Right, so what do we know about that $500,000 asset? Well, over the last 50, 60 years in the Golden Horseshoe, the average appreciation rate has been 5+%, right? And so for $500,000 in real estate, in a year's time, I'm going to make $25,000, meaning my asset is now worth $525,000. The important thing here is that I didn't just make 5%. I have $100,000 invested, and from that $100,000, I made $25,000. Right? So my ROI, my return on that investment is 25%. That's really important, right? When we think about the appreciation, it's 5%. That's on the asset worth $500,000. I only have $100,000 into it, but I'm going to make 25% ROI on that money. And that, in a nutshell, is the power of leverage. So let's jump into our spreadsheet here for a second, and we'll look at these more detailed financials. So again, these are kind of standard numbers. We got a 425 purchase. We've got an ARV of 580. We're doing some renovations. More than anything, we've got $85,000 tied up in our long-term capital, right? Our ROI, as we look at this, 57% right here. Okay, so let's look at that as it relates to leverage. So we'll take two scenarios. One is we've got a cash down payment, right? So we're going to pay $85,000 in cash. Long-term, we're going to tie that up in the property. Right, so this is our 85 that we just looked at in the spreadsheet. And our gross profit, which is mortgage pay down, appreciation, and cash flow, minus our $85,000 in 5 years with standard projections, is going to net us around $240,000 in pure profit, right? So 240 related to our 85, our ROI is 57% on this asset, annualized. So now let's look at a secondary scenario. What if, instead of paying cash for that down payment, we used a line of credit, right? We used another form of leverage. So not only are we leveraging the mortgage 4-to-1, which we talked about, the bank is comfortable giving us that, but we're also going to leverage the down payment, right? So a couple things change here. In this scenario, we've still got the $85,000 long-term capital tied up, but we've got it on a line of credit, right? So let's say in this example, my line of credit has a 4% interest rate. 4% on a monthly basis over 5 years is around $17,000. That's my actual cash out of pocket, all right? That's the amount that I pay out of my pocket. So I'm not going to have the property pay for that. That's going to be capital that I take out of my paycheck, and I pay that on the line of credit, and I let the asset do its thing over the 5-year term. So in this case, what that means is that the total profit, again, around $240,000. This time, though, we're going to subtract the $17,000 capital. That money that we paid out of our pocket, we're going to pay that back with the profit from the asset. So our total profit, we're going to pay back the 85 and the 17 here. Our total profit is going to be around 226. Our annualized ROI, 17,000 related to the profit, is now 265% annualized. So very, very strong. Again, one form of leverage allows us to get 57%. Another form allows us to minimize our capital even further by leveraging the down payment through a line of credit, and then push up the ROI to up into the 200s. So it's very, very strong. The concept of leverage as it relates to real estate investing is, one, nested, and two, very, very powerful, right? It can make your capital go much, much further and your ROI go way up. So very, very important as it relates to leverage. Now, one of the things that newer investors struggle with is, and even some, experienced investors struggle with is leverage good for me? Is it good? Is it strong? Is it powerful? Is it safe more than anything? So what can we learn from the banks? One, the A lenders, we know that they record record profits every year. So we know that they're good at making money, right? That we know for sure. Second thing we know is, like we talked about in the beginning, if I have $100,000 and I want to invest, and I walk into the bank and I say, I want to invest in something other than real estate. Maybe it's another business, maybe it's some stocks, anything other than the brick and mortar asset of real estate. The best they're going to give me on my $100,000 is another $100,000. So a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, if I walk in, like we said earlier, with $100,000 and say I want to buy a house, they're going to give me 4-to-1. That says a lot about how the banks think about real estate. They know the same thing we do, right? They've seen the same data. They've been investing for real estate longer than we have, right? So they've seen the 150-year study, 13 of the major economies around the world over the last 150 years, real estate outperformed everything. Plus, they've got their own track record, right? Which is extremely strong. So we know, second thing we know about the banks is that they love real estate. Third thing we know about the banks is that if I give them $100,000 to invest with, and let's say I have a GIC, right? I put my money into a GIC, they pay me 1%, or in a high interest savings account or whatever that might be. Let's say it's high interest saving. They're going to pay me 1% on that money. And what are they going to do with that $100,000 while they pay me the 1%? They're going to do two things. One is we have a fractional lending system here in Canada, which means for that $100,000 they're giving me, they can go loan that out 10 times. Right? So that's the fractional lending system. They're engaging, that's a form of leverage. They're taking the one bucket of $100,000 that I've given them and they're paying me 1% on. Then they go do that 10 times. If all they ever did was invest that 10 times at 1%, they would be making a healthy margin from that. More than that though, they try to take my $100,000, pay me 1% on that, and then lend that out as mortgages and make 3 to 4%, or better yet, in credit cards and make 10 or 18%. So they're engaging in multiple nested forms of leverage themselves. So third thing we know about the banks is that they love leverage. So we know three things about the banks, and what can we learn from this? One, they record record profits, so they're very good at making money. Two, they love real estate. And three, they love leverage, and they use it to their advantage very, very strategically. We can do the same thing. Lots of people look at the banks and think that they should be nonprofit entities. Well, they're not. They're for-profit companies, and they're very good at making profits. And so we can learn from them. We should look at them as investors, especially as our partners, right? So what does that partnership look like? Well, the banks look at us and they say, one, I love real estate. You love real estate. Let's be partners together. I love real estate so much that I'll give you 4-to-1 odds. This is the bank. I'll give you 4-to-1 odds. You take care of vacancies. You take care of repairs. You manage the property for me, and I'll give you a low interest rate, and I'm happy with that, right? They're comfortable to do that. From our standpoint as investors, why is this partnership good? Well, I've now got a partner who will give me money at a very low rate. 3 to 4% is almost free money. And they love real estate just like I do. They believe in it in the same way that I do, so we're very well aligned that way. And also, they don't want any monthly reporting. They don't need to see the property every quarter or every year. As long as they're backed by the brick and mortar, they believe in that asset so much, and they believe in our aligned interests as well, so much so that they don't need to see anything, right? I make my payments. They're happy with the brick and mortar backup as a security just in case. And that's how we create a good win-win partnership. So for investors, the banks are the best partners ever, right? So hopefully this helps to understand leverage, how it works, why it's so powerful to have your capital go further and increase your ROI while you do so. And two, how can we learn from what the banks do and mimic that in our own lives to create our own record profits? Hopefully this helps.